The stadium shimmered under May sunlight. Rows of navy gowns, camera flashes, proud families waving from the bleachers. My name was somewhere on that program, printed neatly beside Master of Data Analytics, but all I could think about was one thing, the front row. The one reserved for family. When the announcer called, "Camila Elaine Reed," the crowd clapped, but the applause blurred. My eyes locked on those seats. Empty. Cold metal catching the light like a mirror reflecting what I didn't want to see. I smiled anyway. The camera clicked, capturing a version of me that looked proud. Confident. But my cheeks ached from pretending. Don't cry. Not here. Not now. Around me laughter bloomed like confetti. One classmate leapt into her father's arms. Another cried into her mother's shoulder. A sea of love I wasn't invited to swim in. I lingered after the ceremony, scrolling my phone like I was busy. Anything to look less abandoned. Ruby, my classmate, spotted me. "Camila, you did it," she squealed, her parents behind her, phones ready. They pulled me into their photos, smiling like I belonged. For a second it almost felt real. Until she asked, "Where's your family?" "Running late." "Yeah," I lied. "Years of practice." When the courtyard emptied, I walked to the parking lot alone. The asphalt radiated heat, the air thick with exhaust and celebration. I sat in my old Civic, hands on the steering wheel, and stared at the exit gate. For a heartbeat I imagined it. Mom waving, Dad holding a bouquet, Avery bouncing beside them in her glitter sneakers. But the vision dissolved under the hum of engines starting. They hadn't come. Again. Just like college. Just like every recital, every award. Always a reason. Always something more important than me. I drove home in silence, the tassel swinging gently from the mirror, mocking the rhythm of my heartbeat. Inside my apartment the air was still, dust floating through a golden beam of sunlight. I hung my cap and gown on the door, careful not to wrinkle the fabric, the only thing that had shown up for me that day. That night I scrolled through Ruby's photos online. Smiling parents, flowers, captions filled with hearts. My own post sat untouched. No comments. No messages. Just one like from a stranger. It shouldn't have hurt. I should have been numb by now. But pain doesn't dull. It just hides, waiting for days like this to come alive again. I whispered into the quiet. Why do I keep hoping? The walls didn't answer. Neither did my phone. But somewhere deep down a small voice said, because you still believe they'll see you. I turned off the lights, the room sinking into darkness. The silence pressed against my chest, heavy and familiar. And yet, beneath all that emptiness, a thought flickered. What if this silence isn't punishment? What if it's warning me that something is about to change? Because in 3 days that text would come. And with it, the breaking point I never saw coming. The morning after graduation, the apartment was too quiet. Sunlight leaked through the blinds in soft, dusty stripes. My diploma sat on the counter, still in its plastic sleeve. Proof that I'd done something worth celebrating. But without anyone to celebrate with, it felt like a trophy from someone else's game. I made coffee, the bitter scent filling the room. One sip, and the memories came pouring back. Years of trying to earn what should have been freely given. Love, attention, pride. All the things my parents reserved for someone else. I was 16 when I first learned how love worked in our house. It had a price tag. Back then I wore a brown Starbucks apron at dawn, steam fogging my glasses as I handed lattes to strangers on their way to better lives. My phone would buzz between orders. "Thanks, honey. Avery needs piano lessons." Or, "Field trip fee, just a little extra, okay?" And I always said yes. Because when Mom texted, "You're our pride," I believed her. I thought love sounded like appreciation. I didn't realize it was obligation. The smell of espresso, the sting of cleaning solution, the crinkle of dollar bills, they became my love language. Every paycheck a new offering, every transfer a silent prayer. Maybe now they'll notice me. When I got into grad school, I told myself things would change. I pictured my mom crying happy tears, my dad bragging to his coworkers. But her only words were, "That's great, honey. Can you still help with Avery's tuition?" It hit me then, success wasn't freedom. It was fuel. Every achievement just gave them another reason to take. I remember one night sophomore year when my checking account hit zero. I called Mom, my voice shaking. "Can you spot me 50 until Friday?" She sighed like I was a burden. "Camila, we're tight right now. You know how much we do for you." What she meant was, we take care of Avery. You take care of us. The next day, I sold my textbooks for gas money. That night, she texted, "Your sister loved her new uniform. Thanks again." I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to say, "I'm not your ATM." But instead I wrote, "Anything for family." Now, sitting in my empty apartment years later, I looked at my reflection in the black coffee surface. I barely recognized the girl who thought earning love was the same as being loved. The cup trembled in my hand. Maybe it was caffeine. Maybe it was truth. Because deep down I knew what was coming. When you stop paying for affection, people like my mother don't apologize, they retaliate. And 3 days later she did. Not with words. With a message that would finally make me see who I'd been loving all along. It was late, past midnight, when my phone buzzed. Outside, rain tapped the window in a slow, nervous rhythm. My apartment smelled faintly of wet concrete and burnt toast from dinner I'd forgotten to eat. I remember thinking, who texts at this hour? I reached for the phone half asleep, expecting a classmate or maybe my boss. Instead, the name on the screen froze me, Mom. 3 dots blinked, then vanished, then blinked again. My chest tightened. I didn't know that what waited inside that message would change everything I believed about family and about myself. The text was short. "Don't bother coming home for Avery's engagement. It's for family only." I read it once, twice, a third time, as if repetition could soften it. My thumb hovered over reply, but words refused to form. Family only. After everything I'd done, the money, the favors, the sleepless nights, I was suddenly an outsider. The silence of my apartment grew heavy. The refrigerator hummed like background noise to humiliation. My throat burned, but I didn't cry, not yet. I just sat there staring at those words until they blurred. When I finally typed, my hands shook. Did I do something wrong? Minutes passed. Then her reply came, fast and clean like a knife. "Camila, it's not personal. Avery wants to keep things simple. Please understand. Not personal." The phrase echoed like static in my ears. The next morning, my coworker Sasha noticed the silence in me. "You okay?" she asked, sliding me a cup of coffee. I tried to smile. "Yeah. Family stuff." But she pressed, "Ice kind." I broke. The story spilled out. The years of paying for love, the new rejection, the text that had snapped something inside me. When I finished, she said softly, "Camila, that's not love. That's control." Her words hit harder than any insult. Control. That's what it had always been. Not affection. Not pride. Just leverage dressed as love. I stepped outside during lunch, the winter air biting at my face, wind carrying the faint smell of street pretzels and car exhaust. I realized I had spent my entire life trying to buy acceptance from people who never intended to give it freely. For the first time, I didn't feel sad. I felt angry, the kind of quiet, sharp anger that doesn't explode. It plants. That night, I opened my phone again. The message still sat there, glowing like a scar. My finger hovered over delete, but I didn't. I saved it. Proof. A timestamp of the moment my family decided I wasn't one of them. Then, curiosity pulled me to Avery's social media. There she was, smiling, ring glinting in the light, captioned, "Couldn't have done it without Mom and Dad." I zoomed in on the background. The family living room. My old piano. My framed diploma on the wall behind her. They hadn't just erased me. They'd replaced me. The rain outside grew louder, almost angry, like it understood. I whispered to myself, if I'm not family anymore, then I owe them nothing. That was the moment everything inside me shifted. From heartbreak to resolve. Because the next time my mother texted me, I wouldn't be the daughter she could silence. I'd be the woman ready to take everything back. Days passed. Then a week. And for the first time in my life, I didn't call home. The silence felt strange, at first like guilt, then like peace. My phone, usually a leash buzzing with requests, stayed still. No, "Can you send money?" No, your sister needs help. Just quiet. I started noticing things again, the hum of the heater, the way the morning light hit the chipped paint on my window frame, the taste of food when I wasn't eating in a rush. It was like waking up from a coma I didn't know I was in. But underneath that peace, something else was burning. Something slow, steady, dangerous. It happened when I went to the mailbox. Among bills and flyers, there was a thick, cream-colored envelope. Avery and Nathan's engagement invitation. My name wasn't on it, but my address was. Inside, the card gleamed in gold lettering. Join us for a celebration of family, unity, and everlasting love. Family, unity. They'd sent it by mistake, or maybe on purpose just to remind me what I wasn't part of. My chest tightened. The edges of the paper cut into my fingers. For a moment I thought I might tear it in half. But then, I smiled. Not the kind of smile you show in pictures. The kind that says, enough. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying every message, every favor, every moment I'd been made to feel small. The words for family only echoing through my skull like a curse. And then like a spark in the dark, a thought flickered. If they could rewrite the story, so could I. The next morning I went to the office early. My hands trembled, not from fear but focus. I logged into my old bank app, scrolling through years of transfers and receipts. All the money I'd sent them. Thousands. My name, their account. Every transaction was a breadcrumb leading to the truth and leverage. When my parents used me, they never imagined I'd keep records. But I did. I always did. I just never thought I'd use them. Now, as the office printer hummed and spat out page after page, the air filled with the faint scent of ink and something else, power. By noon I had a folder full of evidence. Not for revenge, not yet. For justice. For the girl who'd worked double shifts to buy a sister's happiness. I looked out the window, watching the snow start to fall, soft and slow. Each flake landing felt like punctuation, quiet, deliberate, final. That night, I placed the folder on my desk, beside the unopened invitation. Two symbols, one of who they were and one of who I was becoming. I whispered to myself, they taught me how to survive their kind of love. Now I'll teach them what it costs. My phone buzzed. Mom. Hey, sweetie. Any chance you can help Avery with her wedding budget? I stared at the screen and laughed. A low, bitter laugh that surprised even me. The silence I'd given them wasn't emptiness anymore. It was power. And power, once you taste it, you never give it back. I opened my laptop, and as the cursor blinked on a blank document, I began typing. Not a message, not a plea. A plan. Because when silence turns to fire, there's no going back. Only forward, to the reckoning they never saw coming. The night I started planning, the city was quiet. A low hum from passing cars floated through the window, mingling with the faint buzz of my desk lamp. The light flickered once like it was warning me, don't do this. But I kept typing. Each keystroke felt heavier than the last. Names, dates, bank transfers, all laid out in neat, damning order. I told myself it wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. Still, part of me knew, once I crossed this line, I couldn't pretend to be the same person. It started with the legal clause. A tiny line buried in my father's will. One I had added during law school, when he asked me to help clean up the paperwork. At the time, I thought it was just an act of love. Back then, he didn't notice the sentence I'd slipped in. All properties are to be divided equally among direct heirs, unless written consent is given by all parties. A harmless clause, I thought. Just fairness in writing. But now, years later, that single sentence was the only thread holding my dignity together. Because Avery and my parents had already decided, everything was hers. The house, the land, even my grandmother's ring. I stared at that clause and whispered, not anymore. The smell of burnt coffee filled the air as I poured myself another cup. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger, tired, sharp-eyed, dangerous. I spent the next few days quietly collecting things. Photocopies, emails, notarized documents. Evidence that everything my parents were about to give away was still legally tied to me. It felt surreal, like I was building a bomb made of paper. One afternoon, while scanning old files at the print shop, I ran into Avery's fiancé, Nathan. He smiled too wide, too practiced. Camila. Hey. We missed you at the party. His voice carried that casual cruelty people use when they already know they've hurt you. I forced a smile. Yeah, I heard it was family only. He chuckled, eyes darting away. You know how your mom is. She just wants peace before the wedding. Peace. It tasted bitter on my tongue. I guess peace means pretending things are fair. He shrugged. You're the lawyer. You'd know. And that's when it hit me, he had no idea about the clause. None of them did. As I walked out, the winter air slapped my face like a wake-up call. I realized I held something stronger than anger. I had leverage. Back home, I laid the documents across the table, the evidence of everything they'd taken, and everything they were about to lose. A small voice in my head whispered, "This isn't who you are." But another voice, colder, sharper, replied, "Maybe this is who you were always meant to be." I thought about my mother's texts, my father's silence, my sister's perfect smile. And for once, I didn't feel like the forgotten daughter. I felt like the author of their next chapter. Still, as the clock hit midnight, a tremor of doubt crept in. What if I was becoming the very thing I hated? What if revenge didn't heal, it only hollowed? But then my phone buzzed again. A new message from Mom. Please don't make things complicated for Avery. We just want peace. I stared at the screen, the words burning. And I whispered. Peace was never an option. The day I decided to act, the sky hung low and gray, the kind of heavy stillness before a storm. I watched my reflection in the mirror while tying my hair back. The face staring back wasn't soft anymore. It was focused, deliberate. I'd spent weeks gathering everything. Financial records, the will, text logs, photos of me signing that clause. Each document a small piece of the truth they'd buried. The folder sat in my bag like a pulse. Alive. Waiting. I told myself this wasn't revenge. It was balance. A daughter taking back what was hers. But somewhere deep inside, I knew balance and revenge sometimes looked the same. The moment came quietly. A family meeting. To finalize inheritance matters. My mother had said over the phone. Her voice sounded sugar-sweet, but I could hear the arrogance underneath. They thought I'd already given up. When I arrived at the house, the air smelled the same. Cedarwood candles, lavender detergent, the faint hint of my father's old cologne. Nostalgia hit like a sucker punch. Every scent a reminder of how much I'd loved this place. And how little it had loved me back. Avery greeted me with that perfect smile. Camila. You look different. I smiled back. I am. At the table, my father cleared his throat. We've decided Avery will take over the estate. It just makes sense. He slid a folder toward me. Documents already signed. My heart pounded, but I kept my tone calm. You forgot something. He frowned. What? I opened my own folder. My consent. The room fell silent. My mother's fingers twitched around her teacup. Avery blinked, confused. What do you mean your consent? She asked. I turned the page, showing them the clause, highlighted in yellow. All properties are to be divided equally among direct heirs, unless written consent is given by all parties. Dad leaned forward. Where did you? I wrote it, I said. Back when you asked me to handle your legal paperwork. Mom's voice sharpened. Camila, that's not. It's binding. Silence again. The air grew thick, almost electric. Outside, thunder cracked, rattling the windows. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my mother exhaled, slow, calculated. So this is about money? No, I said quietly. It's about memory. She scoffed. You always were dramatic. I looked at her, the woman who had taught me that love was a transaction. Maybe, I said. But I learned from the best. When I left that house, rain was pouring, cold needles stinging my skin. I stood at the edge of the driveway, staring at the place that had shaped me, broken me, and finally feared me. Through the window I saw them arguing. Mom waving her hands, Dad pacing, Avery near tears. For years that sight would have crushed me. But not anymore. Still, the victory didn't feel clean. It felt heavy. Because as I walked away, one thought wouldn't stop echoing in my head. What if justice hurts the wrong people too? I tightened my grip on the folder. My sister's laughter from the house drifted faintly through the rain. Not cruel, just naive. And that's when guilt joined the fire. I whispered to myself she never asked to be part of their game. Maybe the strings weren't just tied to them anymore. Maybe they were tied to me too, pulling me somewhere I didn't want to go. And for the first time I wondered, could I fight for justice without becoming my mother? For a few days after that meeting, I didn't hear a word from them. No calls, no texts, no apologies, just silence. First it felt like freedom, clean, weightless. I went to work, came home, watched the city lights flicker across my ceiling at night. The world outside kept spinning as if nothing had happened. But inside something was shifting. I thought winning would feel like peace. Instead it felt like an echo, hollow and cold. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Avery's face that day. Confused. Betrayed. Not cruel, just caught in the crossfire. Then one evening a message arrived. Not from my mother. Not my father. From Avery. I don't understand why you did this. You could have just talked to me. I stared at her words for a long time. My throat tightened. The truth was she was right. I could have talked to her. But I didn't trust her to listen. I typed, deleted, and retyped a dozen responses before settling on the truth. Because no one ever listened before. Her reply came fast. That's not fair. I never wanted to take anything from you. The words cut deeper than I expected. 'Cause I realized maybe she hadn't. Maybe she was just living the life I'd made possible, the one built on my sacrifices. I set the phone down and leaned back in my chair. The city hum outside sounded different that night. Not alive but accusing. 2 days later I got a call from my father. His voice was stiff, formal. Camila, we reviewed the documents. Your clause holds up. You'll get your share. There it was, validation. The justice I'd fought for. But his next words cracked something open inside me. I hope you're happy. You've divided this family. My breath caught. Divided this family. As if it hadn't been divided long before I ever picked up a pen. Still. Hearing him say it made my victory feel smaller. Dirtier. After the call I sat in the dark, the folder of legal papers still on my desk. I ran my fingers over the edges, sharp, cold, precise. Justice, I realized, is clean on paper. But in real life it stains. I went to the kitchen for water. The faucet squeaked, the metal cold against my fingers. And in that silence I heard it, a whisper from my own mind. You became one of them. The next morning I found Avery waiting outside my office. Her eyes were red, her hair a mess. No makeup. No armor. Just my little sister, the girl who once cried when I left for college. Camila, she said softly, I don't care about the money. I just want us back. For a moment I wanted to believe her. To drop the anger, to be sisters again. But something inside me stayed still, like I didn't know how to be that person anymore. I said quietly, you don't fix betrayal with apologies, Avery. You fix it with truth. Tears filled her eyes. Then tell me yours. I opened my mouth but no words came. Because the truth wasn't simple anymore. I wasn't the victim I used to be. I was part of the damage now. As she turned to leave, her voice cracked. You got what you wanted. Was it worth it? I didn't answer. I couldn't. But when the door closed and her footsteps faded down the hall, I whispered to the empty room. I don't know anymore. And for the first time, justice didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss wearing a crown. The apartment was too quiet again. The kind of quiet that made every clock tick sound like judgment. It had been a week since Avery's visit. Her words still echoed in my mind. You got what you wanted. Was it worth it? Most nights I told myself yes. That I had done what needed to be done. That boundaries and revenge weren't the same thing. But deep down I knew the truth wasn't that clean. I'd stare at the framed documents on my wall. My diploma, my bank confirmation, the locksmith's receipt. Proof that I'd survived. But they didn't feel like victories anymore. They felt like trophies from a war I wasn't sure I'd won. The sun dipped behind Denver's skyline, flooding my small living room with gold light. It hit the mirror by the door. The one I'd almost thrown out months ago. For a second I caught my reflection. Same face. Same eyes. But something behind them had changed. That's when I saw the envelope. It was wedged halfway under the door, plain cream-colored, no return address. My heart tightened before I even touched it. When I picked it up, I recognized the handwriting immediately. My father's. The paper smelled faintly of cologne and rain. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. Camila, your mother won't admit it, but she's scared. She's angry because you stopped needing her. I know what she did was wrong. I should have stopped it. I didn't. That's on me. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know she's not doing well. People talk. She won't leave the house. Avery's stuck in the middle. I hope someday when the dust settles, you'll remember that families aren't built on blood. They're rebuilt by choice. I read the letter 3 times. The ink had bled slightly near the bottom, maybe from rain, or maybe from tears. My first instinct was anger. Another guilt trip wrapped in sentiment. Another attempt to pull me back into their orbit. But then I caught my reflection again in the mirror, this time holding the letter. My hands were shaking not with rage but grief. Because buried under the apologies and excuses, my father had said something I hadn't heard in years. I should have stopped it. For the first time he admitted it, that I hadn't imagined everything. That I hadn't been crazy or ungrateful. Someone had finally said the words I'd been waiting for my whole life. And that realization hit harder than any revenge could. It made me cry, not loud, not messy. Just a quiet, steady ache that felt like release. I folded the letter and placed it on my table beside my coffee mug. The city outside buzzed faintly, cars, laughter. The faint hum of a world that didn't care about my family's chaos. I looked at the mirror one more time. For the first time in months, I didn't see a victim or a villain. Just a woman, tired, human, scarred, but standing. I whispered, maybe that's enough for now. But as I turned off the lights, something in me hesitated. Because part of me, the part still searching for closure, wondered what would happen if I reached out. If I called. If I visited. If forgiveness wasn't surrender but freedom. The mirror caught a flash of my reflection as I walked past. Eyes red, mouth set. And in that fleeting glimpse, I didn't see the girl from graduation. I saw someone still deciding what kind of peace she wanted next. Then the room went dark, and for the first time silence didn't feel like an ending. Felt like a choice. The letter stayed on my table for 3 days. Every morning I'd glance at it while making coffee, pretending I didn't notice it, pretending it didn't pull at me. By the 4th day I stopped pretending. I sat down, the paper cool against my palms. My father's words echoed again. Families aren't built on blood. They're rebuilt by choice. I wasn't sure if I wanted to rebuild anything, but I also wasn't sure I wanted to carry this weight forever. Outside, snow had begun to fall. Soft flakes brushing against the window. Denver looked washed clean, quiet. It made me think of home. Of the way the porch light used to flicker when I'd sneak in after late shifts. How Mom would wait up, pretending she'd just woken up, but I always knew she hadn't slept. For a moment that memory didn't hurt. Just existed. I picked up my phone and scrolled to her number. It was still there, Mom. Untouched since the night I'd reported her. My thumb hovered over the call button. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. What would I even say? Hi, Mom. I pressed fraud charges, but how are you? It sounded ridiculous. Impossible. And yet, before I could talk myself out of it, I pressed call. The ringtone felt endless. Each second stretched thinner than breath. Then a click. Her voice. Cautious. Tired. Smaller than I remembered. Camila. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I just listened to the faint hum of her kitchen in the background. The fridge, maybe the sound of a distant TV. Home. Yeah, I finally whispered. It's me. I wasn't sure you'd ever call, she said quietly. Your father told me you got the letter. I did. And I swallowed. The lump in my throat was sharp, heavy. I didn't call to argue, I said. I just wanted to hear your voice. There was a pause, long enough to make me wonder if she'd hung up. Then I heard it, the faintest sob quickly swallowed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just didn't know how to stop." Her voice cracked, and for the first time I believed her. Not because it made what she did okay, but because it sounded human, raw, scared, real. "I wanted to make things even," I said softly. "But I think I just made them quiet." She let out a broken laugh. "Quiet can be good sometimes." We stayed on the phone for nearly an hour. Mostly silence. Sometimes tears. At one point, Avery's voice echoed faintly in the background, hesitant, nervous. "Is that her?" she whispered. "Yeah," my mom said gently. "It's her." When the call finally ended, I sat there for a long time, phone still warm in my hand. No grand apology. No perfect resolution. Just something small, fragile, trying to grow in the wreckage. I walked to the mirror by the door again. The same reflection. The same eyes. But this time they didn't look like they were searching for revenge. They looked lighter. Maybe healing didn't come in loud victories or courtroom moments. Maybe it came in broken voices whispering, "I'm sorry," over static. The phone buzzed once, a text. From Mom. "Dinner next week? Just us." I stared at it for a long time. My chest ached in that old familiar way. Not pain exactly, but the memory of it. Then I typed back slowly. "We'll see." And for the first time in years that felt like enough. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft, endless, cleansing. And somewhere between forgiveness and distance, I finally felt free. The apartment was too quiet again. The kind of quiet that made every clock tick sound like judgment. It had been a week since Avery's visit. Her words still echoed in my mind. "You got what you wanted. Was it worth it?" Most nights I told myself yes. That I had done what needed to be done. That boundaries and revenge weren't the same thing. But deep down I knew the truth wasn't that clean. I'd stare at the framed documents on my wall, my diploma, my bank confirmation, the locksmith's receipt. Proof that I'd survived. But they didn't feel like victories anymore. They felt like trophies from a war I wasn't sure I'd won. The sun dipped behind Denver's skyline, flooding my small living room with gold light. It hit the mirror by the door, the one I'd almost thrown out months ago. For a second I caught my reflection. Same face, same eyes, but something behind them had changed. That's when I saw the envelope. It was wedged halfway under the door, plain cream-colored, no return address. My heart tightened before I even touched it. When I picked it up, I recognized the handwriting immediately. My father's. The paper smelled faintly of cologne and rain. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. "Camila, your mother won't admit it, but she's scared. She's angry because you stopped needing her. I know what she did was wrong. I should have stopped it. I didn't. That's on me. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know she's not doing well. People talk. She won't leave the house." Avery's stuck in the middle. "I hope someday when the dust settles, you'll remember that families aren't built on blood. They're rebuilt by choice." I read the letter 3 times. The ink had bled slightly near the bottom, maybe from rain, or maybe from tears. My first instinct was anger. Another guilt trip wrapped in sentiment. Another attempt to pull me back into their orbit. But then I caught my reflection again in the mirror, this time holding the letter. My hands were shaking, not with rage but grief. Because buried under the apologies and excuses, my father had said something I hadn't heard in years. I should have stopped it. For the first time he admitted it, that I hadn't imagined everything. That I hadn't been crazy or ungrateful. Someone had finally said the words I'd been waiting for my whole life. And that realization hit harder than any revenge could. It made me cry, not loud, not messy. Just a quiet, steady ache that felt like release. I folded the letter and placed it on my table beside my coffee mug. The city outside buzzed faintly, cars, laughter. The faint hum of a world that didn't care about my family's chaos. I looked at the mirror one more time. For the first time in months, I didn't see a victim or a villain. Just a woman, tired, human, scarred, but standing. I whispered, "Maybe that's enough for now." But as I turned off the lights, something in me hesitated. Because part of me, the part still searching for closure, Wondered what would happen if I reached out, if I called, if I visited, if forgiveness wasn't surrender but freedom. The mirror caught a flash of my reflection as I walked past. Eyes red, mouth set. And in that fleeting glimpse, I didn't see the girl from graduation. I saw someone still deciding what kind of peace she wanted next. Then the room went dark, and for the first time silence didn't feel like an ending. Felt like a choice. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like rage. It looks like peace. It's not the courtroom victory or the perfect apology that sets you free. It's the moment you stop letting the people who broke you decide who you become. Camila didn't win because she punished them. She won because she walked away, lighter, wiser, and finally at peace with the silence she once feared. Maybe that's what real justice sounds like. Not a gavel. Not applause. Just quiet. If this story touched something in you, stay with us. Because next time, someone else will find their justice in ways they never saw coming.